Funding for Schaefer-Ellis is provided by
Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. Well, I haven't complained about a live-action Star Wars show in a while. I kinda skipped discussing Season 3 of The Mandalorian, since I feel like everyone pretty much agreed that it was terrible, and understood why. But Ahsoka is getting a lot more praise, which is fine. I obviously didn't like it very much, but I'm always happy when other people enjoy something I don't. But some people calling this the best live-action Star Wars project in ages deeply confuses me. Like, huh? For the sake of not being called an elitist, I'm gonna avoid mentioning Andor throughout this review, since I think that's way too high of a standard to hold all Star Wars media to. But like, what about the filmmaking and storytelling in this show lives up to the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian? Or the filmmaking present in the sequel trilogy? Remember, the problem with those movies is the bad writing. They were all pretty well directed. But this is the big question. Is the filmmaking and overall direction here on the same standard as the Clone Wars or Rebels, the shows that Ahsoka is a direct sequel to? I'm gonna be honest, I don't think so. I found Ahsoka's overall direction to be pretty stilted and lifeless a lot of the time. And nowhere is that more evident than with the title character. Ahsoka is so boring in this show. She isn't written with the same spunk as her animated counterpart, nor is she portrayed with the same charm as her voice actress, Ashley Eckstein. Instead, Rosario Dawson delivers what is arguably the worst lead performance in any Star Wars project. And that includes the damn prequels. She seems so disinterested in everything going on, even during what should be exciting action sequences. And while you could argue she's more melancholy because she's older and more jaded, I don't know, she had much more personality in Rebels, which isn't too far from this show in the timeline. She sucks the energy out of nearly every scene she appears in, to the point where my favorite episode was episode 6, the one where she only appeared in one scene. Episode 5 was also pretty good since they switched her out for a younger actress, Ariana Greenblatt, who pretty much acted circles around her. Everyone else in the show is fine, doing their best I suppose, but it's almost like the way it's directed is restricting them from emoting too much. Again, it's like poetry. Everyone pauses for way too long during simple dialogue scenes, and so many of the lines they're saying are kinda trite and cliche, which doesn't help matters. The only real standouts in the cast are the late Ray Stevenson as Baylan Skoll, who gives a quietly understated but compelling performance, and Iman Esfandi as Ezra, who's charismatic and charming and so much more likable than his animated counterpart. Like, I hate animated Ezra, but somehow this version of him was the best part of this show. David Tennant was pretty funny as Droid from Clone Wars, and I guess Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn was okay. I've just never been super into Thrawn as a character, and it's no different here. Anyway, the characters aren't the only victims of the overall weak direction. The action is pretty unmemorable, and there are some odd scenes. Like when we see Sabine on her motorbike in the first episode, and it's trying so hard to be cool, but just comes across as awkward since it's so visually bland. This show never presents a compelling reason for why it needed to be live action. Aside from the fact that tons of audiences are too good to watch cartoons. Oh no! Never mind the fact that the cartoons this show takes 90% of its ideas from tell far more compelling stories and are far better crafted than this show could ever dream of being. Like, it really just feels like the main appeal here is seeing your favorite animated characters and things, but it's real life now. So, the exact same appeal as the Disney live-action remakes. Obviously, it's a little different since this is a new story, but it's so loaded with excessive Clone Wars and Rebels fan service that it might as well not be. Did we need the Night Sisters, or the Mortis Trio reference, or Huyang, or Rex, or the Siege of Mandalore, or any of these other things I enjoyed in Clone Wars, but didn't need to see in live action instead of something new or unexpected? The only new interesting stuff is Baylan and his apprentice, which goes nowhere by the end of the show, and might not go anywhere ever because of the actor's unfortunate death. In terms of the story we get, it's fine. Better than Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi with more of a reason to exist. It just takes forever to get going. The first half really drags, and the slow burn doesn't feel justified because the characters aren't very interesting. The main relationship we focus on is Ahsoka and Sabine, 2 characters who barely interacted in Rebels and whose entire history together happened off-screen in between shows. David Tennant Droid tells Ezra why Sabine wanted to train as a Jedi in the last episode. Like, this could have been interesting if we knew it sooner. As is, it's so hard to care about this relationship. Partially because Ahsoka in this show doesn't seem to care about anything, let alone Sabine. The first scene that actually grabbed me and made me say, damn, that was kind of a good scene actually, was in episode 4, when Sabine makes the choice to give Baylan the map to Thrawn because she really wants to see Ezra again. It was tense, well acted, I didn't know where it was gonna go, and it was a really interesting character choice. And from there, the second half of the show was a bit better. Not by much, but I was mildly interested to see a new galaxy. I liked the space whales, they looked pretty cool in live action. The Anakin and Ahsoka episode kinda worked on me. Some of it felt too fanservice-y, like we did not need to see the Siege of Mandalore instead of a new battle, come on. But it was the first time it felt like the show titled Ahsoka was actually interested in Ahsoka. They should have just called this show Sabine because she's the main focus, but I digress. Seeing a Clone Wars aged live-action Ahsoka actually enhanced my understanding of the character, since it really hit home that she was a child soldier, which didn't come across as much in animated form. It was neat. It was a neat episode. It was not the best episode of Star Wars ever, and Anakin flashing into Vader was not the best shot in Star Wars ever. Like, have you people even seen Star Wars? There are shots in this episode that look better. Like, I'm sorry, but if you seriously think this was the best episode of Star Wars TV, you're clearly a Clone Wars and or Rebels fan. So I have to ask, do you actually think this tops Carnage of Krell, The Lawless, The Wrong Jedi, Orders, The Phantom Apprentice, Shattered, Twilight of the Apprentice, or Twin Sons? Get fucking real. Anyway, episode 6 was solid, and I enjoyed parts of 7 and 8. The zombie stormtroopers were kinda neat. I liked the turtle friends Ezra was living with. Chopper is pretty cool, I like Chopper. But ultimately, the show ended in such an unfulfilling way. I knew Thrawn was gonna get away, because he's gonna be the villain of Dave Filoni's movie, so they can't thwart him now. But I assumed that meant the finale would focus on whatever threat Baylan was cooking up. Instead, the episode kinda forgot he and his apprentice were characters. Their storyline amounted to nothing outside of the vague notion of the Mortis trio existing. Okay? That's not enough to keep me invested. I need something more real. And that's coming from someone who knows what a big deal the Mortis trio is. What is a casual viewer supposed to get out of Baylan's ending? It's not even satisfying for me. How is some random statue gonna be satisfying for them? Sabine finally got the Force, pretty unceremoniously after all that buildup, and nothing really came of it in the end. Ahsoka didn't really grow. The whole show was basically just table setting for the big movie later down the line. One that I couldn't be less interested in if this and Mando Season 3 are any indication of its quality. I don't know, man. I used to idolize Dave Filoni when I was younger for unlocking the full potential of the prequels and making it my favorite era in Star Wars to this day. But I think he's kinda cooked, man. He told his original inventive stories, and now he's just content to sit back and reheat all of those formerly interesting characters and concepts, except this time it's real life and not animated. And I guess there are legions of fans that'll eat that up. I followed the reactions on Twitter when each episode aired, and I hardly ever saw anyone talking about the action or the dialogue positively. It was just, whoa, look, it's Sabine and Ezra and Anakin and Rex and Thrawn, Mon Mothma's back, C-3PO showed up and I clapped! Look, if that's what gets you excited nowadays, more power to you. But I like when Star Wars tells compelling, complete stories with engaging filmmaking and endearing characters, rather than relying on fan service for the biggest moments. I'm not asking for high art. I don't need every show to be on Andor's level, but like, would it kill you to aim for the heights of an above average Clone Wars arc? I don't even need peak Clone Wars. Just something that lives up to its quality and Just something that lives up to its quality and deserves to carry on its legacy. Speaking of which, I do have one other miscellaneous compliment for this show. Its best aspect by far is Kevin Kiner's score. He's the same guy who did Clone Wars, and by God, his music carries so many scenes in this show. One of the best Star Wars scores I've heard in a while. It's not a show devoid of good elements or entertainment value. I mildly enjoyed half of it, and I think it's better than Boba Fett, Kenobi, and Mando Season 3. Which, speaking of, I'd like to amend my scores for those first two shows, since they both went down in my mind since I reviewed them. Book of Boba Fett is going down to a 3 out of 10, and Kenobi is going down to a 4. Which is the same score I'd give Mando Season 3. So congrats, Ahsoka, you outdid them all, since I'm giving you 5 out of 10. I never want to see fan service in Star Wars again. Unless they bring back Hondo, in which case I'll give whatever he's in a 10 out of 10. Hey Hondo, what's the best place to build a website?
We are pirates! We don't even know what that means!
Hondo, you ruined the transition. You were supposed to say Squarespace. It was like a whole thing. Never mind, just cut to the ad. Squarespace is an amazing online website builder that enables you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. Create your own online store to sell your products. Whether they be physical, digital, or service products, you better believe Squarespace has the tools you need to start selling online. Hop on in with one of their professional website templates, with designs for every category and use case. Then make it your own by customizing the design, updating content, and adding whichever features you need. Any Squarespace template can do anything you want, allowing your idea, brand, or business to stand out. And on any device, too. You can even host video content using Squarespace, organizing your video library, showing off your content on beautiful video pages, and selling access to exclusive videos with member areas. The possibilities are near limitless. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ShapeRellis to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.